What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mind of Marsal podcast. This is episode number 135. I am your host, Armando Marsal. You can find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. Follow me on the Twitter machine at Armando underscore Marsal, as well as on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Mind of Marsal. Before jumping into it, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. I greatly appreciate you all. Remember, folks, if you're enjoying the podcast, enjoying the content, please make sure you follow, rate, review, like the podcast wherever it is you're consuming it. You can also find this now on the YouTube channel, the video version of this podcast there at the Mind of Marsal podcast. It is Friday, ladies and gentlemen, so you know what time of the week it is. It's that time that Chris Rose and myself get together, we talk some football. Chris, how's it going, brother?
What's up, man? Happy week 16, almost Christmas time. I gotta tell you, man, this is my favorite time of year. I don't know if we talked about this before, but man, I've had my Christmas stuff up for almost a month. Like I put them up before Thanksgiving. I'm obsessed with Christmas time.
Yeah, I'm a huge I love this time of year, right? Like it's one of those where it's hectic, there's so much going on, but it's also at the same time it sounds crazy, but it's also peaceful, right? Like everyone's kind of happy to a certain extent. Like it's a fun time of year. I go, my tradition is the day right after Thanksgiving. I go and get my Christmas tree. Go to the Home Depot, Publix. This year they didn't have them at Publix down here in my area. I don't know if they had them in your area, but in my area they were not selling Christmas trees in Publix's. But we do that. We get the lights on that weekend as well. I never I have done it before like Thanksgiving, but we usually do it like right after Thanksgiving. But I'm like you, man. If it was up to me, I don't make the rules. You know, happy wife, happy life. But I don't make the rules in this house. But if it was up to me, yeah, right after Halloween, dude, we'd be plugging away at these
Yeah.
Christmas lights. I do like it, man. I enjoy. I get to watch a lot of movies with the kids. They got the hot chocolate, even though it's not that cold down here. Good little traditions that we got. So I enjoy this time of year, man. You can also spend time with family and things like that. So um, for me,
All
it's
right.
a great
The
time of
real
year, man.
question is though. Here's your real question. What's your favorite Christmas movie though?
Oh, it is not even like for me, it's simple. It's Home Alone. Like for me,
Yeah.
I absolutely love that movie. Like there's so many, right? Like there are so many great movies, and we watched, we watched a couple already. But Home Alone, like anytime that movie's on TV, Christmas time or not, if we're being 100% honest, like there are a few movies that are like this. That is one of them. Christmas time or not, I stop and watch Home Alone. Like for me, one of my all-time favorite movies. Just gives me memories of when I was a kid too. Like I absolutely love it. What's yours? Do you have one?
So Home Alone is mine, but I like Home Alone 2. I like the one in New York.
Look at it's funny. My brother-in-law and I had this conversation last week, because he also swears by that. Like he's like, I like all the Home Alone movies, but without question, he says Home Alone 2 is the best one that there is. I'll say this,
Mhm.
they're both great. For me, it's just that first one. Like there are so many great scenes, so many great, moments. Just like there is in that second one too, by the way. Like there's so many great moments. Um, but the original one for me, man, it's tough to beat. But yeah, I love both of them. I actually was watching Home Alone 3 last night before bedtime there on TV with my kids. So, I just to me it's a great time of year, man. And like you said, it's week 16.
Yeah.
Christmas is right around the corner. It's less than a week away, for those who celebrate. So it's a fun time. I'm looking forward to this week. You and I were talking about this week, by the way, speaking of week 16. It is a challenging week from a DFS perspective. We'll break that all down here today. And before we dive into it, we always talk a little bit about the Thursday night football two game. I asked you though, did you get to watch it? And you got to catch some of it. I'll be honest with you, like it felt like a playoff game, right? Like I felt like I was watching a playoff game last night. Like both teams left it all on the field. It went into overtime for those who didn't watch. Great game. The Rams could have locked in that top seed. Like now, the 49ers have a path to the top seed. Like there's different things that can happen. So I see a lot of these teams now having more to play for, which is great for us. When you're looking at it from a DFS and fantasy standpoint, because it makes things a little bit easier to a certain extent. But Chris, your thoughts here on that Thursday night game? Like I thought it was a phenomenal game.
Yeah, man, what a great game like last night. The San Francisco, it's crazy because there's going to be three teams out in the West that are going to make the playoffs. The Niners with a 96% chance to make the playoffs. But yeah, it felt like a divisional, like NFC divisional game in the playoffs. What a great! I thought when the Rams scored, when Puka scored that touchdown in overtime, I thought it was over. And then, I mean, Darnold, what a way to come back after throwing two early picks and then the two touchdowns, especially the 2 point conversion to a guy that wasn't targeted, Sobert, who wasn't even targeted all game. Just a great game. You gotta love that late in the season.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, man. I was like he came out, started awful, throwing some interceptions, just not playing good football, and you start questioning yourself like, man, like is he going to be the issue here in Seattle? I still think he has some deficiencies, but the way he came back in that second half and played really good football, brought that team back. And then in overtime, like given the circumstances, right? Like that is tough. Like you go, the other team scores. Now you have to score a touchdown. This is not like the pressure is at an all-time high. And then in addition to that, you get that done. And then you convert not one, but you convert multiple 2 point conversions in crucial situations. I think Darnold played a very good second half of football. I will say this about Matthew Stafford. There was a lot of doubt about Stafford going to last night's game because of the narratives of Nakua's off the field issues, Devontae Adams not being there. Listen, and I'm going to say this like this is the way I see things, and maybe I'm wrong. When someone is on, right? Like someone is playing at a ultimate elite level. Very few things are going to derail that player, in my opinion, right? And right now, the way the football that Matthew Stafford is playing, not many people are playing at the level he is, in my opinion, MVP like level, right? Like that's really what he's playing like. He carved up a very tough Seattle secondary yesterday in a meaningful game. Yes, they lost this game, sure, okay, but he played some really good damn football, right? Like if I am a fantasy manager, I'm not sitting him the rest of the way if you're still in your playoffs, right? Like, I'm not like he's just playing too good of football. He doesn't give you that rushing element, sure. Fine. Like that's fine. But he's playing incredible football. I'm going to continue rolling him out. These two backfields are a nightmare. Rams backfield, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, the way they utilize these players, nightmare. Seattle, the way they use Walker, Charbonnet, nightmare. If you were invested in this, you just had to roll with your guys at this stage, right? And it did probably didn't work out for you with Kyron. Walker did pay off. And then just JSN and Nakua, right? Like your guys, like they top receivers in the NFL right now, both showed up in big moments. I thought it was an overall great game. Parkinson, look, he didn't show up. He didn't get a ton of opportunities there. Four targets, caught two passes for 21 yards. That's kind of he was a touchdown or bust guy, right? Like he was never going to be that 7 to 10 target tight end. We expected the larger role this week with Adams out, but we saw them utilize, other players. We saw them Mumfield with 8 targets. He had some chances and some big plays there, contested catches. So we saw his role increase. He's someone that if Adams misses any more time, can continue to see some more work there. But Parkinson's still going to be involved. I can still see the 4 to 6 targets per week there with Parkinson until Higbee returns, obviously. And you're really depending on touchdowns. So that's how I view this. Overall, fucking phenomenal game though. This is going to be, we could see these two teams facing off in the playoffs again. I think these are going to be two difficult teams to beat in the postseason. Both very, very well coached and very, good both on both sides of the football, right? Defensively, offensively here, Chris. Anything else here?
No, I have nothing.
All right, let's dive into this week 16. And we got 11 games on the main slate, Chris. And I'll tell you this, you and I spoke briefly about this before jumping on, and I think you and I agree. This is a challenging slate without question, right? Like, I think that it's straightforward enough where you're going to have to get creative to get different. And by creative, that's going to probably require taking on risk. I look at this as a highly volatile slate. We come to the point where there are teams that are not playing for anything. There are teams that are playing for something. There are teams that are going in different directions, right? So we're going to break that all down here today. But before we dive into it, like we always do, give me your overall thoughts on this slate because I do think this is one of those weeks where you got to kind of tread carefully as far as how much you want to invest of your bankroll. But again, it's just the way I'm seeing this slate. How are you seeing it?
Yeah, same thing, man. There's gonna be a lot of variance this week. There's a lot of I had a hard time running up running backs, to be honest with you, and wide receivers. I mean, I have so my article's already been submitted, but I have three running backs that I absolutely love, but they're high priced, and then I have three running backs that are just meh to me. No one else really stood out. And then at the receiver position, there's maybe four guys that I trust and three guys that are kind of that value mid tier options that I really wrote up. I don't have a ton of guys. My player pool is going to be small. Typically on slates like this, my pool is really small because of the variance. And if I stick to a smaller player pool, I'm not going to get, you know, influenced by some outside noise and just trust the process that I've gone through from Monday till today and just go with what not only gut plays, but kind of what the numbers show. So again, it's gonna be a variance play. I'm probably going three running backs. There's a couple guys I want to touch on the running back position. I don't know if I trust as far as value guys. No one really stands out as they did last week.
Yeah, when I started my process this week, it's funny because I kind of hold in on several players at each position, but then you start digging in deeper and deeper, and you're like, man, you can make a case. So like I have a narrow like you player pool of players I fully trust, like
Mhm.
fully trust. But I have some players that we can have a conversation about, and you can steer me in that direction, right? Like I feel like there are some of those players on this slate. It's just really how you want to get creative. I think that's the big challenge here, right? How are you going to get creative? Because I feel like this is one of those weeks where you mentioned it. The high price running backs is where it's at. Like I feel like everyone's going to try to get at least two of the high price running backs in their lineups this week. I think it's very feasible given the quarterback situation, given the wide receiver situation. It's very feasible to do so, right? But everyone else is going to try to do it. And I think everyone else is going to be successful doing it. So is that exactly what you do? And then if that's the case, how are you going to get different? Because then that means everyone's going to be paying down at quarterback, right? And you're going to be looking at those mid tier receivers that you talked about. And I feel like that's going to be roster construction. So I think the biggest challenge on this slate is how to get different, like finding ways to get different. And it could be just one or two positions, right? And doing so without having to take on that enormous risk. And I think that that's what you and I are going to break down here today because I think that that's how I'm approaching this slate. Like I'm looking for these pockets where I reduce my variance by not taking on so much risk, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to identify here today. I will do a position by position, Chris. As usual, we'll start at the quarterback position. You said you write up the quarterback coach, right? So I did check that article out. I kind of wanted to see how far apart we were. We're pretty close for the most part in this at this position, Chris. But why don't you talk to me a little bit about it? Like when you look at the high price guys, you got Josh Allen at 7,200 at Cleveland. You got Prescott at home against the Chargers 6,700, and then you got Joe Burrow at Miami at 6,500. Are any of these guys standing out to you as man? I really want to go out there and play this guy.
Probably not going to pay up at any of the positions here. I think I'm going to try to save some salary here and pay down probably under 5,500 in this spot. Just guys that I can't get behind just based on matchup wise.
For me, Joe Burrow really looks like a strong play against Miami. This is not a defense we've been shied away from, a defense I don't mind targeting. I just don't know how to read this game. Like that's my issue, right? Like, what are we going to get from here? Neither of these two teams have anything to play for. We know Miami made the change at quarterback to,
Mhm.
Quinn Ewers. We'll talk about him when we get lower into the, quarterback pool here. But like, are they going to put up a fight? Are the Bengals going to come out and want to like light up, the box score? There's just so many things going on right now here, and I I don't know if I want to get to Burrow. If I am paying up for anyone, it will be Joe Burrow because he could come out here, he could throw for 300 plus yards, he could throw two, three touchdowns pretty easily against its unit and call it a day. And then you get there, you're going to get production. He's going to exceed expectations at that point at 6,500. So for me, I think in tournaments you can make a very strong case for Joe Burrow. I'm going a little bit cheaper this week than I am with Burrow. But I'll tell you this, like if I'm paying up for anyone, it will be Joe Burrow. Miami's just not good defensively. Like this is not a good defensive unit. They've showed up sometimes, they haven't others. So for me, I think Joe Burrow and GPPs is very much in play, though. He doesn't stand out as a priority by any means for me, Chris. Um, Looking down at that, 6 to 65 range, Chris, who are some plays that you're looking at here?
Uh, I'm probably gonna, a couple guys that I wrote up. One being Justin Herbert. I know he hasn't really thrown a lot over his last 4 games. I think he's only averaging like 20 attempts over his last 4 games. But I do like this spot. We've been targeting the Cowboys defense. I think he has the best matchup on the slate. I think they've been like 32nd in the league over the last like since like week 11. So I like Herbert here. I like Jared Goff here. I didn't write Goff up. But I do like Goff here in a game that they have to win. I think the Lions right now have a lesser likelihood of making the playoffs than anybody left in this NFC North. They have a 33.9% chance to win this to make the playoffs. Now, I will tell you in this NFC North, Green Bay has a tough match, has a tough like last 3 games. They got Pittsburgh this week. They got Baltimore and Minnesota in Minnesota on the 4th. So that being said, this NFC North, I still believe is still up for grabs. Chicago has a tough matchup too of these next 3 weeks, so I think it's up for grabs. Detroit has to win this game. Now that being said, I do like Jahmyr Gibbs out of anybody in this game, so I think Gibbs is interesting. But I think you can go all the way down to guys like Jackson Dart. I like Dart here against Minnesota, although Minnesota has been putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I think if you look what Minnesota's done over the last couple of weeks, they've implemented more Dallas Turner, who has been an absolute menace on the outside. Bernard is out for the rest of the year. He just was got put on the IR or he just had surgery. He's been amazing on defensively for Minnesota. But the guy that I like the most in this price range is CJ Stroud, coming off a big game last week where 3 touchdowns, he completed 22 of 26 passes for those 3 touchdowns. Didn't have to do much in that game. So if there's anybody here, I like Stroud a lot, especially with Woody Marks being up in the air for his status for this game. You're going to have a practice squad guy in Jawar Jordan from Louisville that's going to be starting probably. I like CJ Stroud a lot in this price range.
Yeah, I like these calls quite a bit. Justin Herbert grades out very, very well for me. I look at him as one of my favorite plays at the position this week. You look at Dallas, they have allowed the most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks, a 68% completion rate, which is tied for fourth most, a league high 31 passing touchdowns. They've given up the most fantasy points per game to the position. They rank 30th in pass DVOA. Weather won't be an issue here, right? So I like Justin Herbert. Yes, has he been kind of shaky in recent weeks? Sure. But I like this game environment for him. You mentioned Jared Goff, man. For me, I think he's such a sneaky play this week. I really, really like this spot. Pittsburgh, their defense has looked better in recent weeks, right? But this is still a defense that they've given up the fourth most passing yards. They're tied for 12th most passing touchdowns allowed, top 8 in fantasy points per game. You look at Goff, he plays much better at home. You mentioned it, right? Like they have to win this game. This is a very important game for Detroit. This is a very explosive offense. I think this is one of those spots where Goff can sneakily go off for, 18 to 20 plus fantasy points here. At that price tag, I'm okay with that kind of production. I think there's room for an even better performance from him. So I like those two quite a bit in that price range. Another one that I'm interested in, I just think that, we talked about him last week. He's an erratic quarterback. The production tends to be volatile, right? I might not get to him. I might get exposure to him through one of his pass catchers, but Bo Nix against the Jaguars. We know that the Jaguars tend to be a little bit, fluky against the pass game at times. So Bo Nix, to me, he has that rushing element. Played a hell of a football game last week in a tough, tough matchup against Green Bay. Again, he's a highly volatile quarterback. There's high variance, so the floor is not as consistent as it is with some of these other guys we've talked about here. Some of these other guys we're going to talk about as well. But there is definitely plenty of upside here at a very reasonable price. 6,100, in my opinion, is very reasonable for his ceiling here. So for me, Bo Nix stands out as an interesting GPP play here. You mentioned CJ Stroud. We talked about him on the podcast last week. I mentioned him on Sunday morning last week as well. Like, he's someone that hasn't had to do a ton, but he's playing better football recently, right? This is a phenomenal matchup here this week against the Raiders. My concern is how often is he going to have to pass, right? Like how much is he going to have to do? But that's not going to shy away from playing him at 5,500, right? Especially if Woody Marks is unable to give it a go here. So for me, I think that he's very much in play, Chris. Like that call a lot. Any thoughts on Jacoby Brissett? Because he's someone that has been super consistent, right? You look at the production, you look at the numbers, very consistent over this last, what, 7 games? You're looking at a ton of production from here. Uh, you look at the matchup here, and it's the Raiders ranked 22nd in pass DVOA. Jacoby Brissett, 20 plus DK points in 7 consecutive games, has attempted 40 passes in at least 40 passes in 6 straight games. Raiders giving up the second highest completion rate to the quarterback position, Chris. My only concern with Brissett this week is he's not going to have to pass a ton because the Raiders are absolute trash. This is one of the worst, if not the absolute worst team like in football. And I think it's by a pretty wide margin when you look at them play. My only concern with Brissett is that, but where are you at with Brissett?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned I want to go 5,500 or less here. I like Brissett a lot in this spot. Really good. I mean, he's been great, especially if you get Marvin Harrison back in this spot. I think we've seen the connection with Michael Wilson. I think if you get Marvin Harrison Jr. back, it's even bigger upside or higher upside for Jacoby Brissett. I love this spot for McCarthy. Um, he's been great. I think Kevin McConnell over the last 2.5 games has changed their game plan for more of that short intermediate passing. I do think that this is a spot where the guys where so I'll tell you my core already just because I wrote my article. I love McCarthy and I loved Justin Jefferson this week. We have not seen now Justin Jefferson is a DraftKings play. And I wrote this in my article. He's more of a DraftKings play based on the salary. He's 6K on DraftKings. We have not seen a Justin Jefferson at 6K. Now, what the Minnesota Vikings are doing right now is they are evaluating for next year. A lot of rumors swirling around this. Who's going to play the quarterback position here next year for the Vikings? I think they're going to evaluate JJ McCarthy, but they're probably going to let him rip over the last 3 games. But they're going to do it in a way where they're going to put him in a good position, short to intermediate passing, and they're going to get Justin Jefferson involved. They have to. This is a point where I don't think he's probably frustrated, but I do understand the situation. I think he understands the situation. But there's going to come a point where they have to get him involved and see the connection. They have a lot of things up in the air. I love McCarthy here at 4,900. And again, this goes back to offensive play calling, putting him in a better situation where they can't fix anything as it is. His mechanics are shit. He has a terrible leg whip. Playing the quarterback position, just watching him throw, he's just a gunslinger. He has a terrible leg whip when he throws. His mechanics are shit. But I do think that this is a spot where they're going to evaluate him and let him throw and let it rip. 4,900 mix in with a Justin Jefferson at 6K. Man, it is a great base for a week where we know there's going to be some variance. And again, I'm not being a homer here. It's just what I've seen over the last 2.5 games where they have set him up to really succeed in this offense. And they're eliminating his reads. It's a 1-2 read, let it go or run. So I like him at 4,900. He's probably going to have a little bit of chalkiness to him. From what I've seen, he's 10 to 12% on DraftKings. But I also see Justin Jefferson at 1%. I think everyone has shied away from him because he's like wide receiver 25 on the year. I like this spot. And for some reason, I think this is a spot where they just go nuclear.
I'm not going to disagree with you at all. Like I like that call out. 4,900, very cheap, very affordable on DraftKings. He's someone that I went into the season very optimistic about. I'll be honest, I'm still optimistic about the long-term outlook for McCarthy. It hasn't been the year I expected. It's been a very down year for him. But you mentioned he's kind of picked it up over the last couple of weeks, right? At least 2 touchdown passes in each of his last 3 games. Very efficient with over a 63% completion rate there. So like someone that I think has turned a corner, right? Back-to-back wins for Minnesota. Like I am with you, man. Like I feel like 4,900. I have him at sub 10%, by the way. As far as ownership is concerned, this is McCarthy. So I have him at sub 10%. So I don't know if he's going to be quite as chalky. I think this is a great spot for him, like you mentioned. Giants do give up a lot of production through the air here. So for me, he's firmly in play. In this range, Tyler Shook, man, like I don't hate him here this week. He's someone that has kind of delivered. He's been that kind of cheap guy we kind of go to each and every week. He's someone else that I'm interested in this week. Quinn Ewers, like where are you at with Quinn Ewers, Bill? Because like you look at the Bengals, they're 27th in pass rush, 31st in pass DVOA. They've given up the 6th most passing yards a 67% completion rate, which is top seven in the NFL, and they're top three in fantasy points per game allowed. You're talking about a min-price quarterback at 4K. I understand, like, there's a relatively low floor here, but is this the kind of risk you're willing to take on this kind of slate?
It depends on. So I think they're going to try to establish the run a little bit more. I like Ewers. I liked him when he was at Texas. I think he has the ability to stretch the ball down the field. I think this is good opportunity for Jalen Waddle. I think this is good for a good opportunity for Darren Waller, who was close to a core play for me. I know he's questionable right now, but I do think he plays. In my article, I clearly say, what is a quarterback's best friend? It is a tight end that has the versatility to create mismatches, both from an outside linebacker and a safety position. So I I didn't write him up because I know the floor is not safe for Quinn Ewers, but I do think this is a great opportunity for him against the defense that is giving up uh, nearly 22 fantasy points per game to the quarterback position this season. Now, if they let him without a leash here and just let him throw, the Bengals are giving up 256 passing yards, nearly 70% completion rate. So if they set him up for success, I think it could be a big game at 4K. If you're playing three lineups, 100%, I'm in on it. I
Yeah,
didn't write him up though. He's in my player pool, and we'll talk about this again on Sunday. He's not in my player pool. He's in my player pool. I just did not write him up just because of safety.
yeah, I look at him, man, and I'm very tempted to use him. Um, I'll be honest, 4K, like, because exactly what you said, right? And we're gonna talk about the tight end position later, but exactly what you said, like, you could stack Ewers with Waller, and you're talking about a $7,500 stack. Like,
Mm,
you can now that opens up everything for you. And
yep.
yes, you're taking on risk, but how much risk are you taking on with a 4K quarterback? Like, what would be the absolute minimum that he can get you to completely disappoint? Like, I think if he gives you 12 to 15 fantasy points, you're doing great at 4K because of what
Yeah.
else it does for you, right? He's not going to win you I don't think he'll win you the millionaire maker, of course, with 12 to 15 fantasy points. Like, that's not what I'm saying, at least. But in 12, 15 fantasy points, you can compete in single entry high dollar tournaments from a 4K quarterback, right? And if he gives you an even higher performance, I think you're looking really good. To me, he's just an interesting
Yeah.
GPP option here.
So here's the thing with Ewers and putting him in a lineup. If you pair Ewers with Waller, you can play the three top running backs that I love, which is Gibbs, Cook, and Robinson. And you play those five guys. You plug in a defense like Tennessee going against Gardner Minshew. You still have nearly $5,100 to play around with per position for three running backs. There are some value wide receivers to play here. I mentioned one with Justin Jefferson. I mean, there is a lot of ways you can go with this. He opens up quite a bit, especially if we want to play those three running backs. I think that's the way you want to build if you're going to go that way.
Yeah, and you could definitely go the three top running backs. You can also just go with two of them and kind of get different and go there's one receiver that's a little bit pricey in particular that I'm very fond of this week. We'll talk about him soon, but you can go in
If you
that
want to get
direction.
different, go Ewers, Achan, and Darren Waller. Achan still being involved in the passing game in a game that's probably going to shoot out. He still kind of correlates well with Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, at that point you got to run it back with someone from Cincinnati,
You
right?
do. You do.
Yeah.
Then you have to go Jamar Chase
Yeah.
or Chase Brown.
I will say this, man. I don't think I've said this guy's name all fucking season. All right. I'm just gonna it's one of those honorable mentions, ladies and
Go
gentlemen.
for it.
Right? I'm not it's if because if I might end up here, this is the problem. I might end up here and I'm not excited about it, but I might. I've done a couple different builds and he's actually fit in a couple of builds. Um Aaron Rodgers, guys. Aaron Rodgers
I knew
against
this was
Detroit.
coming.
Yes, you have to think about this, right? Like, this is a high total game. I'm expecting them to chase points here. You look at over that like the last couple of weeks, 17, 21 DK points. Yes, he was trash the weeks before that, but he's shown sometimes this season where he has that in his game where it's still multiple touchdown passes. He did it from that week 6 to 8 stretch, like where he was pretty solid. In my opinion, this is a game where they are not going to be able to just run all over Detroit. Like this is a game where he's going to have to do a little bit if they want to keep it in this game because I do expect Detroit's going to score points on them, right? We talked about Jared Goff and all that. Um, so for me, Aaron Rodgers, man, like in tournaments, if you're looking for a salary saver, I probably won't end up with him in my lineup. I'm 100% going to have exposure to this offense. It might not be through Aaron Rodgers, but in case I do end up with him in my lineup, I did want to mention him because I'm not ruling him completely out of the player pool for myself this week, right? And this is a week where like last week, I did multiple lineups. This is another week where I might do multiple builds here. So if I do end up with a Rodgers build, I wanted to mention his name here, Chris. Anything else at the quarterback position?
No, it's a game that they have to win. I think we want to target teams that are in the playoff race. I mean, they're a game up on the Ravens. They have to continue to win out to take that AFC North. So yeah, I mean, definitely in play.
Yeah. And I will say that I know we were having technical difficulties with CJ. Well, we were talking CJ Stroud. I'm in on CJ Stroud. I'm in on
Mhm.
Jacoby Brissett. My only concern with both of them is the passing volume that they're going to have this week. But I do think that they're cheap enough where you could take that kind of risk here. The Raiders matchup for Stroud is really really good here. So they want to add that. All right, running back position, Chris. Devon Achan, Bijan Robinson, Jameer Gibbs, all 8K and above. The three guys are all very much in play for me this week. If we're being honest, I'm going to try to get two of them in my lineup, just like everyone else is. If you're having to choose two, do you have any particular two that you're choosing from this bunch?
So I'm going to rank them this way. So I have in my article, I have James Cook as number one. I know he's a little bit cheaper, but I have James Cook as number one. I have Achane as number two. Bijan as number three. I did not write Jameer Gibbs up. I think it's pretty obvious. I don't think I needed to write him up, but I have him ranked that way. I like the matchup for. I like Achane's matchup number one. He has the 32nd ranked defense. I like the matchup for him. But here's the thing: James Cook in this matchup against the Browns. The Browns have been terrible against the run. They've given up 22 to Swift, 31 to Pollard, 17 to McCaffrey, 24 to Genty, and 23 DK points to Henry. Those over the last 5 weeks. We've seen him dominate on the ground. And I think this is a game where the defense is going to dominate. I think he scores close to 30 DK points again. He had those 3 touchdowns last week. Pretty sure he goes over 100 yards again. I think he's in the running for. Is he leading the league in rushing yards as well? Um, so I like this spot heavily for James Cook, and at the price tag, 100% in. Man, he's 28 rushing yards behind Jonathan Taylor, and has a better matchup for the NFL rushing league. So I think it's a game where he goes over 100 yards, absolutely dominates on the ground. I don't think they can stop him.
Yeah, I have him in my player pool as well as I highlighted him here on my notes. Really love this spot for James Cook. I'll start with Devon Achan, man. Like I absolutely love this spot for him. Cincinnati ranks 31st in rush DVOA, 31st in rush defense, 29th in tackling. They've allowed the most rushing yards to running backs this season. They're giving up 5.4 yards per carry. They're also tied for sixth most receptions allowed. They've given up the third most receiving yards, second most receiving touchdowns. 18 total touchdowns allowed to running backs this season. That's a high number there. So HL, we know the usage has been insane. He's given us a safe floor. The only concern is like how often is he going to get checkdowns here with the quarterback change? I still think he's going to be very much involved in the passing game. I'm not overly concerned, but that is something that I am thinking about here. Still very much in play for me. This is a phenomenal matchup. I think the Dolphins want to end on a high note. They want to see what they have in this young quarterback here because I think the Tua Tagovailoa era in Miami is completely over. I don't see this, extending beyond this season. So they need to see if Ewers is that guy for them, or if they need to go and address it next year, or see if they have something to build off here, right? So I think that they're going to come out here and play football. And I think they're going to end off, they're going to try at least to end off on a high note. Whether they succeed or not remains to be seen. Right behind him, man, Bijan Robinson. In my opinion, like you look at Bijan and you say, man, he's arguably the best running back in football, right? Like when you look at it pound for pound, Everything he brings to the table, he's dynamic. He can catch passes to the backfield in between the tackle runner. Like he just checks off pretty much every single box. Tyler Algier is a problem, and I just hate the fact that they utilize him so much there. But Bijan Robinson is going to get plenty of opportunities here. And you look at the matchup, Arizona ranks 25th in rush DVOA. They're 30th in rush defense per PFF, 32nd in tackling. They've given up the fifth most rushing yards. They've given up 4.8 yards per carry, fifth most rushing touchdowns, and fifth most fantasy points per game. Bijan Robinson, 8,700. I'm willing to pay up here. Really grades out very, very good for me here. It's the biggest decision is if I'm not paying up for both A-Chain and Robinson is which one I'm gonna roster. Love them both here. And I think just to echo what you're saying about James Cook, you look at the numbers here, right? Like Cleveland on paper, on the surface, like you look at the all season numbers, they're really good against the run, but they've really struggled, like you pointed out in recent weeks. You look at Tony Pollard, look like fucking vintage Tony Pollard against his unit. The Bears backfield just ran wild against his team. So Cook has had at least 20 opportunities in four straight games. We know the usage is there. He's topped 100 rushing yards in three of his last four games. He's amongst the top three in the NFL right now in red zone rush attempts. Bills are favored by 10.5 points. Another game where I think they're going to utilize, James Cook. I think the usage is going to be there. He under seven, that under 8K mark, like I think he should be in that 8K mark with some of these guys, given what he brings to the table. So I think you're getting a slight discount on him. Really like this spot for him as well. View him more as a GPP play because you know what, the Browns like they have been susceptible recently, but I still, you can't rule them out from bringing in a good game here. Like they have, they're a solid unit defensively here, but. Still have been very susceptible against the run as of late. You mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs. He's probably my least favorite of this bunch, right? Like when you look at everything, when you take everything into consideration, but that doesn't mean that he's not in play for me. He's just not someone I'm prioritizing at the high end level. For me, it's really, really between H and Robinson. I'm going to try to fit him both of them. If I can't, probably Cook will be my pivot. But man, all three of them, if you can fit them in, I think they're slam dunk plays here this week, Chris. Um, Once we go down, we got 7K Travis Etienne at Denver. I'll be honest, I talked about Etienne last week. He was a building block for me last week. I'm out this week. The price has gone up significantly. I respect this matchup enough to kind of fade it. Are you in on Etienne or are you going in a different direction this week?
Yeah, I probably won't get the ETN here. Tough matchup against Denver here. I think if I'm going to go down a price tag, it's probably going to go to Chase Brown. I think he's more that cash game play though, so I don't know if I'm going to get the Chase Brown. There's not much I like here aside of Quinshon Judkins. I know he's been awful the last 2 weeks, just ineffective with his runs, not seeing a holes right. But I think this is a game where he could absolutely smash at 6K. The Bills have not been good against the run over the last couple of weeks, giving up nearly 29 fantasy points per game to the position over the last couple of weeks. So I think this is a spot at 6K, and this is the spot where I kind of struggled a bit to try to find some value. 6K Quinshon Judkins kind of fills that void for me.
Man, I'll be honest with you. I have one running back in this range too. I wish with him. So to kind of echo what you're saying about Judkins, like the usage is there, the production has not been there. This is the matchup that things can get right. The Buffalo Bills really bad against the run. I just don't trust this Browns offense. That's my thing. Like my thing is I don't trust this Browns offense. So for me, I'm having trouble getting to Judkins. Can he go off here? Absolutely. Just the game script is also a concern for me. So I'm a little bit more, I guess, pessimistic when it comes to Judkins, but I understand it because we talked about it last week, and I mentioned like the usage is there. We can't ignore it. We kind of our roles have reversed when it comes to Judkins from one week to another. Um, for me, look, I'll be honest. It's Bucky Irving, the one that stands out to me. Carolina, they rank 27th in rush DVOA, 25th in rush defense, 14th in tackling. They're giving up 101.7 rushing yards per game, 4.8 yards per carry. They're tied for sixth most rushing touchdowns allowed to running backs, top nine in fantasy points per game allowed to the running back position. And when you look at Bucky Irving, at least 18 opportunities in every single game since returning from injury. So, like, the usage has been there. He hasn't produced the high end or Bucky Irving like numbers, But this is an important game for both of these teams. Like they need to win here. Like the winner of this game, if I'm not mistaken, is winning is takes the lead in their division. So this is a meaningful game before two teams. So I think Buck Irving, this is a good get right spot for him at what 6,700. I don't hate it. I wish Woody Marks was healthy, right? So we can target him here against the Raiders. You and I talked about him last week. He left with an ankle injury. He's dealing with an ankle injury. As of the time of us recording the podcast, he hasn't been able to practice, so that's not a good sign for his availability. But man, I wish he was healthy because he got off to a pretty good start last week before going down. He scored a touchdown and everything before exiting the game. I think it would have been a solid game for Marks here. Um, but man, and I know the touchdown was fluky, but still, still someone I think could have done pretty good here in this spot. For me, this is not a great range. I think you can now start looking at sub 6K, and even this range, there's some question marks, which is why I think everyone's going to be focusing on paying up at their position. But if we do go down in this range, there are some players we can consider. Chris, do you have any at the sub 6K range you're looking at?
Sub 6K, probably the only guy. So there's a couple guys. I like Tyrone Tracy here at 5,700. Looked great last week, 2 touchdowns. Looked good in between the tackles. So I like him a lot. Uh, these are guys that I haven't written up just in my player pool. Second one being Michael Carter. I think this is a spot for Michael Carter to get double digit carries. Decent spot against an Atlanta defense that ranks 25th against running backs. And then the third guy that I'm having a struggle with that is in my article that I have not wouldn't even thought about writing him up is Audric Estime. 5K. Devin Neal being out, I do like the spot for Estime against a Jets defense that ranks 32nd in the league since week 11, giving up 40.2 fantasy points per game to running back. So at 5K, Estime is definitely in play.
Man, I really want to get behind that. Like the thing is
It's
with me,
so hard, man.
the thing is with me is like, look, they're going to utilize Hall. You're also going to get like some stupid Taysom Hill plays. Like,
Yeah.
I
I don't trust Evan Hall though. I don't.
no, neither do I. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's good. But the thing is, like the way that they utilized them last week, the way they utilize these backs, like, and the way I envision them utilizing this back for like if I were to choose any running back, it would 100% be estimated in this backfield, but I just don't feel comfortable with either of these guys. Like, um, I don't know what I'm going to get there. I love the Tyron Tracy call, by the way. I think he's very much a play this week. I think he's cheap. A dynamic running back where he's going to get, both catches and rush attempts here out of the backfield. In my opinion, like we've talked about this for most of the year, right? Like Minnesota a team, if you stick to the run, like you're going to be able to run against them. And then in addition to that, if this game does play out like you and I talked about could potentially play out, if they're catching points here, he's going to be very much a play as well. So I'm totally fine with Tracy. In that same game, I think Aaron Jones is interesting, bro. I know they're kind of deploying a committee here, but man, you look at Jones and he's been involved, man. I like the spot for him here. I think that you look at the price tag 5,200, Chris. He has at least 15 opportunities in each of his last two games. Someone who I think can do well in this matchup against New York. New York is not a defense I'm concerned about at all here. So for me, Jones is in play. But again, we're talking about so like look what we're talking about here. We're talking about running backs in committee situations, right? So that's you're taking on variance, you're taking on risk, and you have to just understand that none of these running backs have their backfield to themselves. So these are two guys or a couple guys I'm in on. Omar Hampton, another one of those running backs in the committee that I think is a very interesting GPP play with this, game environment here against the Cowboys. I'm in on Hampton, not a core play, not a building block, but I'm in on him. And then another one is Kenneth Gainwell, man. Like I really like this spot for Kenneth Gainwell. You talked about him a couple times already this year. You look at the numbers, man, and it's very difficult to ignore. And then again, this is because of where I envision how this game is going to play out. I think the Steelers are going to be playing catch up. And you look at Gainwell, he has at least 6 targets in 4 of his last 5 games, 15 plus opportunities in 3 of those 5 games. And I think he's going to continue to see a role in the passing game. Is it going to turn into high-end production? I don't know, but it's very cheap, man. And if you want exposure to this game, if you end up stacking the lines, or if you end up playing, Amon Ross St. Brown, Jameer Gibbs, and you want a run back option, not named DK Metcalf, I think Gainwell is another one of those options here this week, man. So it's very volatile, right? It's very dicey. There's not one of these sub 6K guys that I'm sitting here and saying, man, this is the week that I'm super in on this guy. But I do think they're all very much in play here. You're just taking on risk with every single one of them. I think the safest one is the one you mentioned, and it's Michael Carter against Atlanta. I think that would be the safest one at sub 6K, who I view as a very strong cash game play this week here, going into this week. So I will say that Michael Carter Jr., very, very good floor play with plenty of upside against a very weak Falcons defense there. Chris, anything else here?
No, I think we've touched on everything.
Yep. All right. Let's jump into the wide receiver position. And I guess the biggest question is, are you going to pay up for any of the top four or top five receivers this week? And that would be Jamar Chase, 8,600. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8,400. CeeDee Lamb, 7,800. Or Nico Collins, 7,500. We'll cut it off there, and then we'll go below that 7,500 range. But any of these guys standing out to you, Chris?
Yeah, I think Nico Collins is the guy for me. Smash play last week. He's gone over 20 DK points in 4 out of his last 6 games. I have him as one of my Roses royalty plays. I like the spot for him. Didn't have to throw a lot last week and still productive. 3 receptions on 4 targets. That long touchdown. I think this is a game where the Raiders should be able to at least put some points on the board. Maybe it's they've looked atrocious with Kenny Pickett, but yeah, I like the spot for Nico Collins, especially if this run game is down to Jawar Jordan. I think they're going to have to kind of throw it down the field a little bit more, especially if they can't establish the run.
Absolutely love that call. Like, I like Jamar Chase just as much as anyone else. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think if you're playing Jared Goff, you stack him up with Amon-Ra St. Brown here against the Steelers. But for me, Nico Collins is the one that stands out the most. And I mentioned that there's one wide receiver that I really want to pay up for this week, and that's Nico Collins. Raiders have allowed the 10th most receiving yards to the position, a league high 69% catch rate, tied for fifth most receptions allowed, reception TDs allowed to the position, top 7 in fantasy points per game, 32nd in coverage against opposing wide receivers, 25th in DVOA against opposing wide receiver ones. You mentioned it. Nico Collins, he's a volume guy, right? But he doesn't need the volume each and every week to produce high end numbers. He has that big playability, that huge touchdown upside. Like, I'm very much in on Nico Collins this weekend. Even if you're not playing CJ Stroud, this is a perfect way to get exposure to this Texas defense, like you mentioned, could be lacking in the running game if Woody Marks does end up missing that game. And Nick Chubb is also dinged up, so don't forget that. So for me, I think that it's a very interesting spot for him here, Chris. We didn't talk about that too much in the running back, but if Chubb, right, and if Chubb and Woody Marks end up sitting this one out, uh, well, Chubb is not like, so Chubb is dinged up. He's going to return to action from what I read. So never mind. I don't think you're going to play Jordan. Are you going to play Chubb if Marks is out? Is the question, I
No,
guess. No. All right.
no.
Neither am I. All right, continue the wide receiver here, Chris. Let's look at sub 7,500 there. We got several notable names right there. Rashi Rice is 74, George Pickens 73, Drake London 7K. We'll go all the way down to Chris Olave at 6,500. So we'll cover the 65, 7,500 range. You got Michael Wilson 69, Jalen Waddle 6,800, T. Higgins 66, Olave 6,500. Anyone in this range standing out to you, Chris?
Not much I love. I was bailed out with the Michael Wilson touchdown last week, but he did not look good in the first half. Did have 10 targets. I think he had 8 in the second half. So I do think Marvin Harrison's back, so that takes me off Michael Wilson, especially that price tag. I think the only guy I really like in this range is maybe Jalen Waddle, but I'm so enamored with Darren Waller that I'm probably not going to get there. Not much else I love here.
Yeah, I don't mind Waddle in the Dolphin stack there. I don't hate Pickens if you're stacking the Chargers and you want to run it back, Pickens or Lamb. I'm okay with them. Not really overly like interested in them. Um, Olave is the one that stands out to me in this range, about 6,500. The volume has been pretty consistent with him. At least 7 targets in 4 of his last 5 games. Now has a touchdown in 2 of his last 3 games. coming off a nice performance there. We caught 6 passes for 85 yards and a touchdown. Really good matchup here against the Jets. You're looking at I think, a reasonable floor play here, especially if they're dinged up, right? Like we talked about, their backfield is dinged up. Like this might be a situation where they trust Olave more than they trust their running backs to move the chains in certain spots, in certain situations. So I can see a scenario where there's increased opportunities here for Olave at 6,500. I'm okay with him here in all formats, Chris. But I agree with you. Not a great and not an appealing range of pass catchers here. But the same cannot be said about this 55 to 6K range. I think 6,500 range here. I think there's a lot of options that we can talk about. I know one of them is going to be Justin Jefferson. Go ahead and talk to me about Justin Jefferson because I highlighted him here as well, Chris. I have the numbers are like they're staggering here when you look at this matchup. So I have some things to say, but I'll let you go first because it's your guy. You're a Vikings fan, so let me hear why Jefferson is very much in play this week.
Yeah, I think it's more so what I said about JJ McCarthy. It's just evaluating what they have this year. I saw an article that they're pretty much playing with house money this the rest of the season. They can be spoilers, but at the same time, they've seen, and I'm going to call it elite. I mean, you don't have 6 total touchdowns and 1 pick and not call someone elite over the last 2 weeks. So I do think that they're going to continue to evaluate JJ McCarthy. Justin Jefferson is 160 yards from 1,000. I do think they're going to try to force feed that. I just think this is a spot where they're underpriced for the upside. The Giants have not been great against the pass. I don't remember. I don't think there's ever been a time, even in his rookie year, where he was 6K on DraftKings. Again, this is more of a DraftKings play here with Justin Jefferson. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just think there's so much more upside than what kind of what it looks like. Now, if you look at this price range, there's a lot of guys I love here. Lad McConkey's in my article. I love Lad McConkey. Yes, I mentioned Justin Herbert. Only 20 attempts per game over the last 4 games, what he's been averaging. So, like this spot here. I like Ted McMillan. Who would have thought the Carolina Panthers can are actually the ones that can hold their own destiny to win the NFC South. So I like Ted McMillan. I think for them to win the game, they have to throw the ball. I like Cortland Sutton, who has retaken over that wide receiver one role when we saw Troy Franklin get a lot of those red zone targets. I love him this week. And then the one guy that the only issue that we've had with him is the usage and target share, and that's DK Metcalf, 5,400 on DraftKings. I think he's a good play both on DraftKings and FanDuel at 7,400 on FanDuel. I mean, he doesn't get a lot of targets, but in a game that should be a high-scoring game, we saw in the Baltimore game he had 12 targets. He's just been efficient. I mean, doesn't get a ton. You like Aaron Rodgers. I think pairing him with DK Metcalf this week is just a smart play to kind of get off the chalk a little bit. He's going to be chocolate, but I think Aaron Rodgers is not going to be chocolate.
I'll tell you this: it's a good week when everyone I have highlighted it, you have highlighted as well. Like in my opinion, it's going to be a very good week because of
Yeah.
that. So I'll start off with Lad McConkey because I have him highlighted as well. Right? You look at Dallas; they've allowed the third most receptions to wide receivers this year, the third highest catch rate, a league high 24 receiving touchdowns, the most fantasy points per game allowed to wide receivers. They rank 31st in coverage against the position, 29th in DVOA against wide receiver ones and two. So wherever you have McConkey, it doesn't really matter. This is a high game total. The secondary is dinged up. Quentin Johnston is dinged up. McConkey has not been safe, right? Like he has not produced in recent weeks, but I feel like this is a get right spot for him. I love him in or without Charger stacks. Like I think he's very much in play. I think he's going to be very low owned. Where do you have his ownership out of curiosity? Because I don't think he's going to be that popular. And I like this spot for him. And as you look for that, I'm going to give you more information on Justin Jefferson and why I am 100% on him. Because look, the first thing I thought to myself when I started digging into this slate was I never thought I'd see the day where Justin Jefferson is 6K on DK, right? But like it's week 16 of the 2025 season, and here we are. I think he's risky. I think he is risky. But this is the kind of risk I'm willing to take. There's no way in hell, Chris, like you said, there's no way in hell that this team goes into next season without Justin Jefferson at least having one big blow up game. And I feel like this is the week that happens. New York, they rank 23rd in DVOA against wide receiver ones. They're 25th in coverage. They've allowed the fifth most receiving yards. They're tied for seventh most touchdowns allowed to the position, top four in fantasy points per game to the position allowed on both sides. You look at Jefferson, like he's maintained a 20+% target share. Like it just hasn't been a efficient, season for him. It hasn't been a productive season. And a
He
lot
has
of
a
that has,
lot of drops too.
yeah,
Him and Addison have a shit ton of drops. It's not all McCarthy.
yeah. So coming off a game where he had 8 targets, but this is that week, and I don't care what the ownership is. Like, fine, I don't care. Like, there's a ceiling here of a receiver that's AK. Like, in my opinion, like you know that because we've seen it. Has he flashed it this year? No, but we know it's in there. I know it's in there. You know it's in there. At 6K, I just cannot fathom fading him in this matchup. Like, I understand if you were playing the best, if you're playing Houston, all right, fine, fuck it. I'm not doing this. But against the Giants, I'm in, man. Like, I am very much in here. Like, I absolutely love it. Did you find the McCarthy ownership, by the way? Because I have him at 3% owned. Like, if you have him at sub 5%, like we're rolling this week. Like, we are 100% rolling this week. Because I
So
absolutely
I
love McConkey.
so I McConkey or McCarthy?
No, McConkey. I know you have
Um,
McCarthy popular.
I have McCarthy at 0%.
Oh yeah, McCarthy. I told you, you thought he was going to be chalky. I have him at sub 5. I think it was sub 5%. I could pull it up, but
I
McConkey's
have
the one to have a 3%. By the way,
I have him at 8%.
sub 10%. That's a GPP play right there, and he might be a building block because this, in my opinion, is a GPP week. So I might be building around someone like McConkey there. Cortland Sutton, you mentioned it, back-to-back weeks with 10 targets. You look at this matchup here, and it's a good one, right? The Jaguars have given up the top receptions, 10th highest catch rate, and they're giving up the fourth most fantasy points per game to outside receivers. For me, I look at this spot for Cortland Sutton. The usage has been there. You mentioned he's assumed that number one role again that we hadn't seen in quite some time. I like it. I think he's underpriced. In my opinion, he should be upwards of that 6K range. He's not there. So Cortland Sutton, another one that stands out. DK Metcalf, man, I mentioned this earlier. I love this game environment. If I don't play Aaron Rodgers, I'm gonna get exposure through him, either with Gainwell or Metcalf. Obviously, Metcalf has the much higher ceiling. You look at this Lions defense; they're banged up. It's been an issue for them in recent weeks. It continues to be an issue for them. Detroit ranks 27th in DVOA against wide receiver ones. They've given up the most receiving yards here. Their eighth most receptions, which is tied in the department, second most receiving touchdowns, second most fantasy points per game. Just an overall really good matchup here for DK Metcalf. Is he volatile? Sure. Does he have an insane ceiling? Absolutely. And this is one of those game environments where it just has the highest total. They're supposed to be chasing points here. Like everything checks off for a potential seeding game here for DK Metcalf. If I'm not mistaken, Detroit plays a lot of man coverage, and I think he excels in that, right? So, I think yes, you take on the volatility, you embrace the variance this week with DK Metcalf, as they say, and you play him here. Outside of that, though, like that's it. Like this is where my bread and butter is going to be, and you mentioned it. Like if you pay down at quarterback, if you pay down at tight end, you're still getting around, and I'm not flexing a running back yet, but if you pay up for HN and Robinson, I did this for us as I was doing the show, and you go with Waller and Ewers, and you pay down the defense, you have about 5,600 left at the wide receiver for 3 wide receivers and one flex spot, right? We just talked about several guys in that 5K to 6,500 range for you. So you can pick and choose from this range 2, 3 guys. Maybe try to enforce in that Nico Collins in that lineup, and you got yourself a pretty good build. And I think there's going to be some contrarian builds, especially if you get McConkey and things like that in your build. So, Chris, outside of this, like where are we at as far as value sub 5K? Or if there's anyone other in that 5K range that we haven't discussed that you want to talk about, go ahead. But if not, you could go ahead and sub 5K range.
Sub 5K, I think at 5K, Jordan Addison, we do like the Vikings passing game here. I think Jordan Addison definitely has an opportunity to have a big game here. But, I think, as we mentioned, we're leaning on the Justin Jefferson side. But I think Adonai Mitchell is a guy that I really like. Looked in sync last week with Brady Cook in his first start, 8 targets and a touchdown. I think we're seeing the rise of Adonai Mitchell as wide receiver 2 there in Jacksonville when Garrett Wilson comes back. So I like him a lot there. I think if Rashee Rice misses the game, Xavier Worthy is interesting as a kind of mismatch guy for Gardner Minshew there. Outside of that, I would go to Jaden Higgins, but I just don't think they're going to have to throw all that much in this game. So probably not going to get there. And then the last guy that I want to mention is Hollywood Brown. If he plays in this game, I know he missed last week with personal incentives over the next 3 weeks. We're going to have to start looking at incentives. Hollywood Brown has a $250,000 incentive. If he does score, I think it's one more touchdown. So Brown is in that talks for incentives.
Yeah, I have Worthy and Brown listed, and I have here monitor Rice's status, of course.
Yep.
I think that's important, like you mentioned. I'm still okay with Jaden Higgins. I agree that there is definitely concern regarding, the volume and how much they're really gonna have capacity. He had one target last week in a blowout, so that's definitely concerning. But 4,100, if you're looking for, a bottom feeding receiver right now, I think he's in a good matchup. We know that his role has expanded despite last week's, usage. His role has expanded in this offense, so he's in play for me. AD Mitchell, again, we know the kind of receiver he is, right? Like it's a boomer bust kind of option there. He's another one that's in play in that range for me. I'm also going to be monitoring Quentin Johnston's status. I think that that's something I want to keep a very close eye on here. Um, Again, obviously he's a boomer bust guy, didn't play last week, dealing with that growing injury. So monitor his status. That's what I would say here because he's someone that in GPPs, if he does play, would be interesting in Charger stacks in this matchup here against the Cowboys. But again, these are all very volatile plays down here in this sub 5K range, Chris. I'm going to say this, Jalen Coker, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of, people on him. I understand the play. But I'm 100% with you where if I'm playing any of these pass catchers, it's going to be McMillan at a far lower ownership because I still think he's the far more talented receiver there. And despite his, kind of struggles in recent weeks and the opposite effect for Coker, the shining in recent weeks, I still think McMillan is the guy I would feel more comfortable with here with choosing between the two. Any thoughts on Coker?
Probably just going to go Tet.
No. I agree with you. Moving on to the tight end position, Chris. Let's look at Trey McBride, 7,600 is the highest price guy on the slate this week. Then you go 5,600 Brock Bowers and then 5K at Kyle Pitts. Are any of these three making your lineup this week?
I'm not going to chase the Pitts big game. Probably not going to go there. Probably not going to go to any of these tight ends. There's some value tight ends that I like a lot. I already mentioned his name, but there's another guy that I like as well.
Well, I'm all ears, buddy. Let's hear it. Let's hear what you got.
So the first two guys that I have, first off is Dalton Schultz. I do like him at 4,200. A little bit more involved, kind of like filling in for that wide receiver 2 Waller. I think he's gonna have a monster game. Looked great last week, where 8 targets, 2 touchdowns against a tough Pittsburgh secondary. So way better matchup. He has the best matchup on the slate, 100%. So I like him a lot. A couple other guys I like. Theo Johnson, Minnesota struggled in a too high safety look against in the middle of the field against tight ends. So I do think Theo Johnson, he could eat in the middle of that lineup, or that middle of that secondary. I like Bretton Strange. Do think the wide receivers have been getting a little bit more attention because of how good Jacoby Myers has been, but I think it's a good spot. But the guy at 3K, TJ Hawkinson. Again, I'm not trying to be a homer here, but just looking how Minnesota has taken over offensively the last 2.5 games, the intermediate and the short passing game, there has been a lot of plays that have been designed where Hawkinson has been the number one target. That was never like that in the beginning of the year. He was always like the third or fourth option in this pass game. It's to get JJ McCarthy comfortable. They keep him as that short 5 to 10 yard route where it gets JJ McCarthy in a rhythm, and then they start going down the field. So at 3K, 5 targets, 3 targets, 6 targets, he's been a lot more involved, and I like TJ Hawkinson at 3K.
I like those calls a lot. Like Darren Waller, you mentioned. Darren Waller's in the best matchup of any tight end without question. The Bengals absolutely trash against tight ends. And you could just look at the numbers here. Like they've given up, the most receiving yards. They're giving up a league high 12.9 yards per reception. All right. They've given up a league high 15 receiving touchdowns. They're giving up the most fantasy points per game. You look at, where they're at as far as defensively in DVOA, they're 30th in DVOA against opposing tight ends. Everything checks off for Darren Waller. Obviously, if he's healthy and he's ready to go, you have to consider him despite the change of quarterback. I'm still okay with playing Waller. I told
Mhm.
everyone in Discord this week, when I was being asked about him for season long, like I'm still fine. I still view him as a top 12, top 15 tight end, however you want to put it, depending on the side of the league. But I view him as a top 12 tight end this week, if healthy. Like just too good of a matchup there for me. I like going cheap at tight end this week, like you mentioned. If I am paying up for anyone, perhaps Kyle Pitts. Like he's just been very, consistent. He's been very involved. So if he gives it a go, I think he's very, very much in play there. I know he's dealing with that. He's dealing with that. I think it's a knee injury. I was gonna say an ankle injury. He's dealing with a knee injury. It doesn't appear to be significant or serious. But just, obviously something to monitor, but there's no denying like the bro has increased at, he's been far more steady coming off that huge performance, and the Cardinals do struggle against tight ends. So it's definitely someone that's in play. I don't think I'm going to get there. I'm going to go much lower this week than I am. I think a way to get exposure to Dallas is through Jake Ferguson. Like I really like the idea of targeting someone like Jake Ferguson. You look at the numbers here, the Chargers 28th in DVOA against opposing tight ends. They're giving up a 73% catch rate to the position there, 6 touchdowns as well. So they have been slightly generous to the position. You look at Jake Ferguson, and look, we know that there's a significant ceiling. We know there's plenty of upside here. The production has become far more inconsistent than what it was at the beginning of the season. There's no denying that he hasn't really flashed that upside that that he hasn't flashed that in what since week 7, right? Since week 7, we haven't seen Jake Ferguson ceiling or upside game. At 4,400, I'm totally in on this. I expect this to be a good game environment. I think that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be chasing points. And he's a good way to get exposure here at low ownership, in my opinion. I don't think many people are going to be on him. And I love the idea of this is you find a game that you're like with a high total where the ownership might be a little lower than it should be. And you got McConkey, you got Jake Ferguson, you're stacking that game with a good game environment at low ownership. And that's a good way to get contrarian this week. So
Mhm.
Jake Ferguson, I think he's very much in play. I have him at 2% ownership here. So I don't see many people on there. In that same game, Gatson's another one you can consider here as at 4,100, especially in Charger stacks. I prefer him in Charger stacks than one-offs if we're being honest, but Gatson's another one that grades out for me very well here in this 4K range. You mentioned TJ Hawkinson. For me, I love that call. Like you're never going to get any pushback from me when it comes to TJ Hawkinson, Chris. So I'm very much in TJ Hawkinson, into TJ Hawkinson this week at 3K. Yes, there's volatility. Yes, there's concerns or whatnot, but I don't care. I'm going to be playing him here this week, Chris. You mentioned Theo Johnson. I've often been talking about him as well. Dalton Schultz, another floor play, in my opinion, this week. So very fruitful
Yeah.
position down here at the lower end, in my opinion, Chris. If Waller plays, I think he's going to be uber chalk this week, and you're going to be eating that chalk, right? Like that, you're okay with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
What do you have as, out of curiosity, what do you have as ownership at this moment?
On which one?
Darren Waller, where do you have his ownership?
Oh, let me see here. I have Waller at 4%.
Really? That is shocking. So I'm assuming you have TJ Hawkinson and McBride as the top two owned tight end this week. Because I have Hawkinson as the second and McBride as the first.
So I have, as far as ownership, I have Juwan Johnson, Strange, Fannin, and Schultz as the top four.
Yeah. Johnson's very much in play too for me, man.
Yeah,
Like I feel like you can go 4,400 and below and
agree.
pick there. So for me, I'll give you my top three. Jake Ferguson for me is my number one tight end on the week. I absolutely love him in this spot. I love this game environment for him. Number two is Darren Waller is going to be number two. If you're thinking price tag, Darren Waller is obviously going to move ahead of Jake Ferguson. But if you're looking at ownership, I like Jake Ferguson much more. And then number three, Jawan Johnson, very much in play. Like that's kind of how I'm grading them out. I won't get I like TJ Hawkinson, but I feel like I would much rather be invested in Justin Jefferson at his price tag. And that's why, and I don't know if I'm going to go with a full-blown Viking stack this week. It's very doable, but I don't know if that's the approach I'm going to take with my roster construction. And I feel like TJ Hawkinson might be better suited for a full-blown
Yeah.
Viking stack versus a one-off here. Or would you say like you would rather stack McCarthy and Hawkinson and leave Jefferson out of your stacks, or is that not something you're doing?
Can't do it.
Yeah,
Got to keep Jefferson.
I'm not doing that either, man. Like I simply cannot do it. So I'm out on him outside of Viking stacks here. Anything else here?
No, I have nothing.
All right, let's look at defense. You and I always do the same thing, and we go all the way to the bottom, and we start scrolling up. And I'll be honest with you, like I think the Titans, like you mentioned against the Chiefs, that's the first stop I had. If you absolutely need to, like absolutely, I won't push back or argue. All right, I'm not doing it, but I won't argue against doing it. And I know you're gonna cringe as soon as I say this, but the Jets, no 2100, like I'm not completely against that one, like at all. So for me, I'm very much into if you want to save that much money and go with the Jets. I'm not completely against going that low with the Jets here. Is it something that I want to do? No. For me, my first stop is the Titans. You look at this matchup here against the Chiefs with Gardner Minshew. It's not a matchup that you know, it's not as an imposing matchup as it is when you have someone like Patrick Mahomes under center. So that's why the Tennessee Titans,
Did I lose you?
yeah, lost you there.
I think I lost you because you went in and out. You were gone for a minute. You
All right.
disappeared.
All right. So go ahead and talk Titans. I'll edit that out. Go ahead and talk Titans.
Uh, so yeah, Titans are my spot. 2,500. Taking it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm playing. 100% in on the Titans.
You're not playing any other defense?
Nope.
All right, there you go. Titans defense it is. If you're paying up for anyone, the Raiders are facing the best defense in football right now, guys. 4K for the Houston Texans, way too expensive in my opinion. I don't see myself getting there, but they are without question the best defense and the best spot on the slate here. And outside of that, like you can make a case for Buffalo on the road. Um, that KC against the Titans as well. But again, I agree with you 100%, man. It's going to be Tennessee Titans defense. And I said this, Chris, I won't talk anyone off the Jets if you absolutely need to.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it, but I won't talk anyone off of that. All right, let's finish off and close this out with some survivor picks for those who are still, I highly doubt anyone listening right now is still surviving because it's tough. But if you are, kudos to you. And we're here to service that. So, what would be your pick this week? I think my obvious ones are going to be the Texans at home if you haven't used them. Very unlikely. I think the Eagles are another interesting one here. But I'll say this, if you're choosing and you haven't chosen them yet, I'll say the Cardinals at home against the Falcons is where I would end up. Am I happy about it? No. Am I excited about it? No. Am I 100% confident about it? No. But that's where I would end up here this week if I needed to there, Chris. Any thoughts on that and where you at as far as Survivor is concerned?
Yeah, I like it. Mine would be the New Orleans Saints at home against the Jets. I think that's the first time I've recommended them. So, yeah, I'd probably be there. Yeah, I mean, for what do you got for bets? I'm probably taking the over on the Pittsburgh Detroit game.
You're taking the over 52 and a half?
Taking the
Whoa, that's wild. Shit.
over.
Well, we have to you do if we take the over, we have to full-blown stack that game. You understand that, right? Like you're talking about this game going to 60 points, close to 60 points. That's over 20.
Taking the over there. I'm taking the over in Minnesota, New York too.
I
Get
like
some
that.
exposure with Jefferson and JJ. and then go and stack the Pittsburgh Detroit game and throw in some Darren Waller. I think that's a great little stack there.
I'll tell you this, I like the Chargers getting two points here on the road against the Cowboys. I do like that. I'm gonna go with a anytime. I'm staying in the same game, baby. We're gonna get wild. We're gonna go McConkey over 5 receptions and anytime touchdown for McConkey. All right. And then we're gonna go with Bijan Robinson anytime touchdown. So we're all in on the Chargers this weekend. All right. We're all in on the Chargers this weekend. So we got the Chargers. I'm writing this down here, right? So that no one says anything. Chargers +2. We got McConkey. All right. 5+ receptions. All right. We got McConkey anytime touchdowns because he is going to score a touchdown this week. And we got Bijan anytime touchdown this week because he is going to score a touchdown this week, Chris. I'm feeling this. I'm liking this. This is where I'm at. And it's been pretty obvious throughout the entire show of where I'm at in this slate. So, all right, Chris, before we jump out of here, before we get out of here, why don't you let everyone know where they can find your work, where they can find your stuff, and what you got cooking here the rest of the week?
Yep. So I have the article just submitted. Should be out tomorrow around between 6, 7 p.m., maybe even earlier. Don't want to say 6, 7 again. God, I hate doing that. And then, of course,
That's only for those who have kids.
yeah, seriously, don't worry about that. But yeah, our show on Sunday morning.
Yep,
Right
Sunday
back at it.
morning, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you're checking Chris and myself out, and we'll be live there, breaking down the slate once again, going game by game with the most updated information, updated news. Again, Chris, always a blast breaking down the slate with you. We talked all things Week 16. We broke down the slate, and we gave you some bets. We gave you some survivor pool picks for those who are still surviving there. So hopefully you enjoyed this week's journey through the mind of Marsal. For the great Chris Rose, I am Armando Marsal. See you guys next week.